I'm Evan LeRoy, and this is New School Barbecue. LeRoy and Lewis Barbecue is a little blue food truck off South Congress in Austin, Texas that cooks locally sourced barbecue on homemade pits. We try our best to honor where barbecue comes from while respectfully adding our own modern touches. These are our recipes, methods, travels, and stories. This is New School Barbecue.
Hey barbecue fans, Evan LeRoy here. In this video we're making our refried beans, and it was originally released on our Patreon on June 17th, 2020. Refried beans are one of my favorite foods of all time. I grew up in a Hispanic family and refried beans were on the table a lot when I was growing up as a kid. They taste like home to me and I prefer them 10 times out of 10 over ranch style beans or baked beans, really any other kind of barbecue bean. They also happen to be the perfect vehicle for pork fat and the kind of secret ingredient. If you ask any Mexican cook, they'll tell you pork fat is really what makes refried beans really good. It's also what gives it that really kind of nice, shiny kind of texture to it. It also just works out that we bring in whole hogs every week. We grind down a lot of fat and we make a lot of lard, so everything that we make as far as lard goes into those refried beans, and it just works really well together. The only difference in our process from what we do now versus what is in this video is that we changed up the spice profile a little bit. We don't necessarily use white pepper and mustard anymore. We've replaced those with some cayenne and paprika to kind of complement the other ancho and cumin spices a little bit better. Other than that, please enjoy this video, like it, comment on how you like your refried beans. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and go to our Patreon and subscribe there if you want over 100 more videos of our recipes, tips, tricks, techniques, and everything else barbecue related. Check out our website if you want to purchase some merchandise, some rub, or some beet barbecue sauce to be shipped to your home. And come visit us at the food truck Wednesday to Sunday, 11 to 9. See you next week, barbecue fans.
Welcome back to yet another video here in the LeRoy and Lewis kitchen, where this week we're focusing on another one of our sides, which is our pork fat refried beans. This is definitely a sleeper on the menu. If you haven't tried these yet, you really got to give it a shot. Also, if you've never made refried beans before, it's really easy to do, and this recipe is super tasty, but you can also make it your own, make it spicy, or do whatever you want to do. So, to get this started, we're going to add 6 quarts of dry pinto beans to our large pot. Then we're gonna add some spices in the form of 1 cup of kosher salt, and then we've got a cup of ancho powder, half a cup of garlic powder, half a cup of white pepper, half a cup of mustard powder, granulated mustard, half a cup of cumin on the bottom. Fill this up with water, let it cook down, let the beans get nice and soft. But if you've got extra pork stock on hand, I highly recommend it, and it just so happens we do. So I'm gonna add this in. I'm even gonna throw in this, the fat cap on top. This is a great way to add some really good smoky flavor and some more depth to your beans. All right, on the stove it goes. Oh, Jesus. Oh, God. All right, now we're gonna just hit this full bore, full heat, and let it all come up to a boil, and boil it pretty hard for the next few hours. All right, now that the beans are cooking away, it's time to render down some pork lard, and it's the exact same procedure as the beef tallow video, but with pork fat. So this is all the pork fat from this week's hog that we had left over. So a good chunk of fat back, and we got this kidney fat in here, and all the other scraps that didn't go into sausage. So that being said, we're gonna just send it through the grinder and throw it in a hot pot. Whenever you're doing this too, I highly recommend a heavy bottom steel pot. Thin bottom pots tend to scorch the fat and you'll end up burning it all. There's nothing sadder than going through all this work and ending up with some burnt, off-tasting fat. All right, on the stove it goes. These beans are boiling away. A lot of people tend to do a overnight soak when they're cooking beans, but I don't have time for that. So we're just gonna boil it away. And over here, the pork fat is looking real nice. Mostly liquid at this point. Once you get this foam on top, kind of like what you get when you're cooking up bacon, that's how you know it's ready. But basically when these are all nice and crispy, but not burned, but still but fully cooked. Make sure you cook all the water out of it, otherwise you don't have a true lard. You have lard with some moisture in it. So once these get nice and roasted off, looking golden brown but not too dark, typically they tend to start floating. That's when you're good to go. Strain all those out and you're left with some beautiful pork fat. So I'll let this cool down for a little bit. Strained out all these little pork crispies. These are pretty tasty. Throw a little salt on there, put them on your potato or something. All we're left with is this beautiful, clean, beautiful pork lard. Cut! All right, as you can see, this pot of beans has reduced down pretty significantly. When I pull these beans out, this is what we're looking for. Just smush really easy. That's how we know they're tender. I've been keeping a good eye on the bottom of this thing with this scraper here to make sure nothing's burning to the bottom. But this is looking like a pretty good consistency. Not too liquidy, so when we blend it up, it'll come out to a nice, even texture. All right, now we're gonna start adding in our pork fat. For a batch this size, I'm gonna add about 2 quarts of our freshly rendered lard. And that's gonna add some real nice richness and some really good flavor to these wonderful beans. These beans are full of fat and flavor and stock, and they're tender and delicious. And now it's time to take them from regular old beans to refried beans by the use of the gigantic stick blender. Simply enough, we're just gonna mix them all up. Woo! And just like that, we've got ourselves some beautiful refried beans. And just like anything else, you always gotta give it a little test run, make sure it's pretty good. I recommend a Frito. Delicious. Also, how much you blend it can really change the texture. If you wanted to leave it a little chunkier, you could do that as well.
Okay, we're here on the truck. We've got our refried beans. They've heated up in the steam table here. They're looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and plate some up. A little bit of queso fresco right on top. Never hurt anybody. There we go. Fried beans.